It's the Weekly Wrap with your host, broadcasting legend Bruce Wolf, and his trusty sidekick, comedian Tim Slagle. And now, without further ado, Bruce Wolf.
Bruce Wolf, Tim Slagle on the Weekly Wrap. And now it's time for my favorite part of the show, wherein I guess what's in Tim's background. Tim, I think this is a slam dunk right here. I'm going to say you've got behind you a photo of the of Tim WALZ. Let's see. He's in Omaha, Nebraska, staring down tanks back in the 70s. Am I right about that?
Well, you're pretty close, but I'm here, but there's no Tim WALZ.
Okay. So
it's Tiananmen Square for those listening on the radio. It's
it does look like somebody was mentioning like a buffet that he claimed he was at. Yeah, one of those all you can eat places. Yeah, Here's the thing.
He got married on the anniversary of Tiananmen Square, and he said that he did that so he would never forget, which is ironically the exact reason why the Chinese government brought in the tanks.
Exactly. That's akin to Bernie Sanders honeymooning in the Soviet Union. I don't trust that.
Less sour cream, more soy sauce, though.
Yeah, what I'm concerned about is that that's Tim WALZ stealing valor from Brian Williams, and I don't really like that. I don't like that. So as for the debate, I mean, what did you think of it? I thought it guaranteed that Saturday Night Live would not be showing J.D. Vance in the cold open this week, because I don't think there was anything they got on him. Nobody got anything on him.
No, it's WALZ went down quicker than a soccer player.
So yeah, the thing about WALZ. Oh, did you see what Politico wrote about WALZ? That deer in the headlights look that everybody. I mean, there's certain things that you want to believe, right? That Derek Chauvin murdered George Floyd by being on his neck for 9 minutes, and another thing would be that that's deer in the headlights. That's a guy who's scared. They were even leaking it earlier in the day that this guy's nervous. You know what Politico writes? No, that's just his intensity. That's the way he and anthropologists have studied man for many a millennia and determined that was an initial. To me, that's the initial sign of Cro-Magnon man, that he's facing a mastodon. So I mean,
well, just... in my business, we have a scientific term for what I saw. We call it flop sweat.
Yeah, exactly. You know who I heard that term from first? It was on a special about comedians. It was the comedian Jack Carter who talked about flop sweat. I actually remember when I first heard. Now, I may have been in Tiananmen Square at the time, or in Omaha. I don't know, but I do remember that coming up. The beautiful thing about this was that, see, I happen to think that J.D. Vance, first of all, I mean, I was pleased as punch that he was so smooth. You could tell right from the first sentence that he had the composure and that he was not gonna be nervous at all. But I have a lot of contempt for J.D. Vance. No, I mean he changes his story as much as Kamala has ever flip-flopped, and his arguments about tariffs and this and that. I mean, you noticed that near the end of the debate, they were practically embracing these guys, because there's not all that much policy difference on a lot of domestic things between the Democrats and Republicans these days. The era of big government is back with us, but
he's got a little bit of zeal in him. That's what I've noticed. He adapts to the situation. Sure. What's needed, and the biggest example of that was he got that movie made.
Oh, sure.
I'm sorry. Trump's running mate could have never gotten Ron Howard and Amy Adams and Glenn Close to star in a movie with him.
Yeah, no, that guy's very intelligent. I read a piece that he did about Paul Ryan's hometown, Janesville, Wisconsin, which was similar to what was going on in Vance's Ohio. He wrote about eloquently in Commentary Magazine about that. And so, I mean, this guy's really smart, but I mean, the sophistry, and what I love though is that here's a guy who's full of crap, but he actually makes the members of the media look even more full of crap. And Cujos, as Michael Jordan would say. I mean, those two women. I don't know who you're going to watch now, because I know that in your household you can't watch David Muir anymore. I mean, what are you going to watch? Reruns of Huntley and Brinkley? I mean, what are you going to do?
Well, actually, we discussed that today. I said, is it Lester Holt now?
Right.
The trouble is our antenna doesn't really pick up Lester Holt that well, so it kind of
why don't you just take the
pixelates.
tinfoil off your hat and wrap it around the rabbit ears, and maybe you can pick
I don't know where Channel 5's broadcasting from. Our antenna on the roof is still pointed directly at Sears Tower, so we get most everything. But for some reason, the Channel 5 has been pixelated.
I'm saying that you really weren't riveted to the changeover from NBC Sports Chicago on cable to the new Chicago Sports Network. That didn't rivet you. Okay, since you're an over-the-air guy.
But that moment where he said, "Excuse me, there was not supposed to be any fact checking. So if you're going to fact check, I'm going to fact check you."
I love that. I mean, you don't take it from them. I mean, I used to hate it when like George Bush and these other guys would go to the White House Correspondents' Dinner and take it. Yeah, and they always took it. And then it's like, oh, no, you don't take it from. No, I'm going to give it right back to you. This is a war right now. I know you're on the other side. And they were. And what I love is when the fact checking is wrong.
Yeah.
And then there was somebody, Nicole Wallace, I think, of MSNBC, was saying, oh, the typical mansplaining. No, you're allowed to, that's the attitude that no woman is ever wrong. No woman ever, and believe all women. I mean,
and in case there's any women listening to the show right now, mansplaining means man explaining.
Exactly. And thank you for doing that.
But you'll notice after that was it. That was they had to turn the microphone off because
it was beautiful. They shut his mic off and they said, well, thank you for telling us about the process. I mean, the process, what are you talking about? You're describing the Harris administration, his departure from immigration, from the way we're supposed to do it with the green cards and waiting 10 years. There's a big chasm there.
It's only legal, because it's only legal because she's not going to prosecute, basically.
Right,
so
it's totally.
That makes it legal. But they never did it again. It was just right. For whatever I think about Vance and that I don't trust him, he knows how to talk to the media in a fashion.
He's really good. He's dangerous. I think come 2028, when he flip-flops again and becomes a classical conservative and says, hey, what about the debt? What about Ukraine, which we didn't even mention at all in the debate? He'll come back into the fold. So Ben Shapiro,
2028, he's going to be looking at a kinder, gentler nation.
Whatever it takes. So Ben Shapiro had a tweet, a very succinct review. He said, Vance delivered a stellar performance. Waltz stumbled and bumbled. The moderators were trash. Thus ended the review. And that inspired me to do, because you got to one up Ben Shapiro. I, on the spot, instant haiku. Are you ready? Tiananmen Square. Guess I wasn't there. I'm just a knucklehead. Ha. So and you gotta give credit to Walz, because you know how crooks, criminals will plead a less or the prosecution will come up with a lesser included. They'll have murder, but then the jury will say, well, you can, if you want, convict him of something lesser, like manslaughter. And that's basically what Walz was doing when he copped the knucklehead plea, because the truth, of course, is that he's just a sack of crap liar. and he doesn't want to be accused of that. So he just, I'm just a knuckle, I'm just a poor country lawyer, whatever. And it's not really one. So
I don't even think Hong Kong was part of China when Tiananmen Square happened. Now that I think about it, I think it was still a British protectorate at that time.
Yeah. Anyway, I just, I got a kick out of the debate. It was actually pretty good. So, speaking of SNL, we just did before. Did you see any of this? Dana Carvey doing?
You know, it was yeah. I saw Maya Rudolph do Kamala Harris, and it was amazing. She was able to get to all the talking points flawlessly. There was no circular talking. There was no word salad. Nothing about him.
So in other words, she did a bad imitation. Well, yeah, because
but it was actually she was better at being Kamala than Kamala. Right. I think the DNC appointed the wrong candidate.
Yeah, no, and once we have AI candidates, I mean that Maya will be the prototype for the Kamala candidate. You know what? But I didn't even recognize that it was Dana Carvey. I didn't even. I mean, they had him made up so well.
Sounded a little like George Bush.
Yeah, of course, of course. He's exactly.
Would not be prudent.
right. But look, when I saw him, I was thinking, this looks like that Paul McCartney imitator to me, and it was Dana Carvey. And
I have to say, what's his face had David Muir's hair down perfectly.
See, those are the subtle touches that I didn't notice. But anyway, yeah, I figured, And Jim Gaffigan did which I didn't watch, and I refute. There's it on the screen if you're watching at home. I didn't even watch the Gaffigan imitation because I'm assuming they wouldn't touch Stolen Valor. They wouldn't do that.
No.
And
no, it just both of them just repeated what their stump speech. That's no. And Maya didn't even do I was born in a middle-class family. She even avoided that.
No, I mean, or holistic, because you can't parody something that's already absurd. It's ridiculous. Bruce Wolf, Tim Slagle on the Weekly Wrap. Bruce Wolf, Tim Slagle on the Weekly Wrap. Okay, now Tim and I take the gloves off. Whereas, in that debate, it was kissy face, by the end of the thing, because we know that did you watch the debate, or did you just read the Twitter feed about it? No, I actually did watch it while I was reading Twitter. And did you watch the whole thing? Yeah, I watched the whole thing. What did you? I got bored about it. Oh, I was bored. Hour and a half in. I couldn't. Oh, I totally was bored. What did I want to see? I actually had a note of, you know what I wanted? When they did all the kissy face stuff about, women, who work, my wife, even though she works and she's making, $800,000 a year as a corporate attorney, and we got a couple of kids, even she has problems, and we got to find it, and I'm thinking, gee whiz, whatever happened to the subsidiarity and conservatism and all that. Okay, what flew right out the window. And I wanted so much at that point. And maybe this is where Nora O'Donnell and whoever would have whatever his name, Megan, or they're fungible to me. This is where they could have chimed in with the whole cat lady stuff. I mean, they could have gone cat lady. You told Tucker Carlson this. You think a woman's place is in the home. Single women are barren sluts or whatever. If they want to achieve that. I mean, that was kind of the attitude, and they didn't touch him, and he would have had to defend that. It would have been more interesting because it was so boring at that point. So yeah, right. Let's go back to an interesting election right now, because as anybody who's a faithful listener / viewer of this show knows, that we're still adjudicating the 2020 election because we got bored of our Civil War roundtable. Yeah. No, it's kind of important because totally important. If we don't address the fraud that occurred 4 years ago, it's going to happen. It's going to happen again. And and right now the way it's polling is it's right inside the margin of fraud. So. Okay. So last week you guys left, I'm sure I didn't address it correctly, but we did address, for better or worse, the claim that 1 in 5 people had admitted to committing fraud in their votes in the 2020 election. Then at the end, you guys mentioned, well, what about that fake water main break in Georgia? And actually, it's kind of relevant because only a couple of weeks ago, there was a final adjudication on this, and of course, it was strictly from a Georgia administrative department. So obviously, you're not going to believe that. But this whole notion that poll workers were fabricating and counting additional ballots after Republican poll observers had left for the night. Those weren't suitcase. I mean, I'm just going to say those weren't suitcases. Those were full of ballots that they were going to stuff. Those were proper storage containers. That people did think that their work was done for the day and they could leave. The so-called water main leak was actually a urinal, and it was hours before, and really doesn't have anything to do with some plot to get.
But it was used as an excuse to get the poll workers out of the arena. That's the thing. Even though it was a urinal that was leaking early in the morning, it was used as an excuse. There are signed affidavits from people that say that, yes, they were told to leave because there was a water main break and the counting was going to stop for the evening.
Well, that was hours and hours earlier. But the problem is, okay, they have made all of the footage, the entire footage, available. And I believe they did an audit of the ballots as well. And you don't have anything. There's nothing there. Well, but you still think there is?
Yes, because right? there were more votes than voters. That has come out. And yes, okay, it was a legitimate ballot container. I will agree with that. Looked like a suitcase with wheels on the bottom, but it was a legitimate ballot container that happened to be under a tablecloth that wasn't pulled out until everyone was thrown out of the room, except for
those were put in there. They were explained why they were put in there. They were originally out, and I think then they were put back in. But I mean, there was even an audit of the ballots. There was. I mean, and look, I want to know why this gains currency only among the tinfoil and our producer Chris. But it doesn't get any recognition, and you can't tell me that everybody's on the take, including all the Republicans and conservatives, because we're not.
You recount cheating, you're counting the cheating.
What?
If you recount cheating, you're just counting the cheating.
It's not. But who says it was cheating? Who says that was cheating?
Because there were more votes than voters.
All right. Send me the information that lends credence to that, because I just saw an adjudication. They showed all the ballots, and why isn't this getting any? I mean, I know this is circumstantial.
All the quote unquote fact checking is they debunk it because some bureaucrat comes out and says no, this is the way it was. That's not fact checking. Fact checking is digging in.
I agree. And I recognized even last week that sometimes, local elections like Parica or whatever, all the way up to Al Franken, those things can happen. But you're saying there were more votes than there were voters there. I think there's probably an explanation for that.
There was duplicate counting found.
Was this within the margin of whatever and non-corruption? I mean, does this happen in elections?
Well, it's 12,000. 12,000 was all it needed to swing the other way.
Yeah, and how many was it?
I think I'm just off the top of my head, 198,000.
Wait, 198,000 what?
More votes than voters.
More votes than voters in the entire state of Georgia.
Yes.
Okay. And there's no explanation for that.
Nope. Which is why the state of Georgia has implemented a law that every precinct now has to count the votes and make sure it matches the amount of voters.
Okay. And how many?
And I might add the Secretary of State, Raffensperger, who said that it was a completely legitimate election, is fighting that.
Okay. And how many of the votes at that State Farm Arena? How many of those votes? How many excess votes were there in that?
Don't have that. I'll have to circle back on that, Bruce.
Okay. And I'm sure that, and I'm wondering if, more votes than voters. I mean, I don't have the explanation for that, but
Georgia was the main state where the rejection rate on mail-in ballots went from what is usually they allow something to like they allowed 96% when they usually allow like 28% or something because they actually were
yeah, the rejection rate is usually
checking.
2 to 3% on mail-in ballots, and the rejection rate for that election was 0.1%.
I remember that objection 4 years ago, and I remember I don't remember their answer to that.
They said they were overwhelmed.
You got to give me your arguments for that, because I'm sure there are answers for that too.
And they said they were overwhelmed because of the pandemic, so there was really nothing they could do.
But then you're thinking that there's fraud. You got to get. I mean, you have to get. Again, if this is some nationwide conspiracy, or even not a conscious conspiracy, where are the actual ballots? Where are the fraudulently written up ballots, filled out ballots?
Well, I believe they've actually been destroyed. Is that people wanted to look at them? People wanted to look at those envelopes.
And where are the witnesses? And where are the people?
Hundreds of signed affidavits.
No, where are
notarized.
the witnesses who said these were fraudulent ballots, and this is the guy who was doing it, and nobody's ever been.
Why are they counting votes after the Republican observers left?
What
are they even allowed to? The whole Watermain break is when the poll watchers left. Why are they even counting votes? They should say we can't count votes. There's not someone here to be watching us.
Well, at some point they were ordered to I think Raffensperger or some. I think right, and he wants to rig the election. He could have been negligent, in doing. I don't think he intentionally wanted to do it. But again, all right, I'm willing to, give me those arguments next time we do this. I'm sure there are answers, even the rejection rate. I just don't remember the answer. I mean, I got to know what the
Bruce, how about this one? Not. I mean, could be considered empirical, but how come every major city, Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, and states that did not matter, Trump increased his vote percentage by like 14%, but yet in Milwaukee, Detroit, Atlanta, he went down. Does that make any sense? He was gaining more in minority votes at high levels. It was known.
It's but here's the thing. That's a variation on the theme of how does Biden, who did a basement campaign, get 81 million votes, more votes than Obama. Well, that's a nice thought, but the problem is that it's because people hate Trump so much.
Well, how did he increase his vote in all those major cities in the areas where
it's good enough to trigger suspicion. I understand that. But again,
every major city except Milwaukee.
Look, well, here's the thing.
Detroit.
All these votes, where are the people could be brought to justice on this, who actually committed the fraud? Where are they? I mean, you think you'd find
suing Rudy Giuliani,
huh?
Suing Rudy Giuliani because they blame him for the fact that they're getting death threats. It had nothing to do with the video of the two of them running ballots through the machines over and over again.
Well, you're making that up. You don't have that.
There's video of that.
No, the video in Georgia,
yes,
at State Farm Arena, of running the same ballots over and over again.
Yes,
that does not. I don't think that exists.
It does.
You look at the video. Where does I didn't.
They run a stack of ballots through, take them out, hit them on the table a couple times, then put them back in the machine.
That is not what the video shows. It just doesn't.
Okay.
It doesn't. And if it showed that, you'd have National Review and Commentary Magazine and everybody on your side for that. And you haven't shown that.
But like you, they haven't looked at it.
Oh, no. Look, they're more, I say we have J.D. Vance look into it, because that's a guy who's a detail guy. All right. Bruce Wolf, Tim Slagle on the Weekly Wrap. Bruce Wolf, Tim Slagle on the Weekly Wrap. And just to continue I shouldn't do this because I'm just going to get more hot water. Just to continue the 2020 election. I do remember there was somebody on some social media site, looked like was a whistleblower, admitted everything, And then it turned out the guy was a fake, and even admitted he was a fake.
After the FBI visited him.
Oh, again, all right. This is what I love. All right, this is what I love. See, I have a close relative. She will remain nameless because she's very close to me. And we were getting into a discussion of this, and she's a Trumper and believes, that their election was rigged. And I said, well, they audited all these ballots, and then she said, well, who checked the auditors? Okay, so that's your FBI thing. It's always, and remember, I was going to say to her, remind me of Juvenal, who said, "Who will watch the watcher? Who will audit the auditors?" But it's some okay. We will, but I tell you,
we haven't even gotten into the U.S. Postal employee who here's thousands of ballots from New York to Pennsylvania.
Here's what I'm actually seriously would like to do, because for some reason, I mean, I wanted to find a conspiracy here, and I'm not convinced. So here's what I want to do. And I know, you guys, your time is valuable, but if you could just jot down like the things that we said before about the ballot rejection rate, about ballots over and over again being put through, and there were a couple of other arguments. One was about the major cities, because I'd like to address those. I mean, it's fun to do, and like I say, it's better than a Civil War roundtable. Okay, so here we are in a new segment, and did you see where Biden? I mean, is this? I think Politico would have a way of spinning this right, because if they could spin Tim Wall's deer in the headlights look into, some look of sincerity that nobody's ever seen before from a human being. But Biden, is on the tarmac. I'm looking for an excuse here other than senility. When they're talking about the strike, and the question is about the strike of the missiles. And he thinks they're talking about the longshoremen strike, and he says they need to go back to the bargaining table or what, or maybe it's a one size fits all thing. But then
again, he does want Israel to go back to the bargaining table as well. So,
well, that's true. And the interesting thing about that is that, well, Kamala, she read a statement. I mean, she was, and again, as you say, Maya Rudolph could have done a much more convincing job of reading the statement. I think the statement that Kamala read in support of Israel, they also had a newspaper, the New York Times, to show that was the date, that she was being held hostage while she actually said this thing in support of Israel. And J.D. Vance, I mean, he said, it's up to Israel if they want to go and bomb them, and they're our ally. And I mean, and it was great. And the only thing is that I think I loved when he looks, the picture that Chris just showed of when he's looking at the camera and breaking the fourth wall like he's Gracie Allen from the 50s. I mean, it's just great. I mean, it's just great when he does that. But the only thing I would criticize him for, I don't think he took on the Harris-Walz administration and said, well, you're wussy, and you want to cease fire. You say that in the same breath that you say that you support Israel. But yeah, so I mean, that was another strong point as far as I'm concerned regarding
I think he could have talked. I think he could have talked more about nuclear Iran than he did. Is that the amount of money that's been going there, that's been helping their nuclear program? Is it under Trump they didn't need diplomacy because they were broke?
Somebody argued with me, and this kind of slowed me down during the debate because I wasn't able to handle walking and chewing gum at the same time during the debate, because somebody said to me, well, under Trump, Iran advanced their nuclear program because we didn't have the inspectors there anymore. And I always thought it was a bad deal because, of course, we're subsidizing a terrorist regime that has all these proxies. But that that the the inspection regime wasn't all that good anyway, and they were able to accelerate their goal
Yeah, if I
towards getting a
remember,
nuclear weapon.
the inspectors were saying that no, they're still working on it. They haven't slowed down.
Well, but I mean that was during the Obama years, right? I, I mean the excuse the other side will always give is, well, we wanted to slow down their nuclear ambitions. Of course, Netanyahu, when he spoke before Congress, was it like 10 years ago almost? I don't remember how many years ago it was. Not too many. He said, hey, 10 years isn't a long time. That's all, you're slowing it down. And that was on the outside. So, and now then they send these ballistic. So my question is was, to your knowledge, was the nuclear program slowed down during the Obama years, or were they just cheating and getting away with having their cake and eating it too?
I don't see the advantage of slowing it down. I mean, all that does is keeps it outside his administration. I mean, it really.
Well, right. He was desperate for a deal.
It's like the joke about the guy that does a rolling stop, and the cop starts hitting him with a nightstick and says, "Now, do you want me to stop or do you want me to slow down?"
Yeah, no, I mean, it it was an insane premise, but in their, trying to look at it in a light most favorable to the other side, in their realpolitik view, which I don't believe. I just think they're a bunch of anti-Semitic bastards and wouldn't mind seeing Israel nuked. But taking the argument, looking at a light most favorable to them, that would slow them down because, among other things, inspectors. But there was actually a piece.
It would slow them down? A first strike by Israel.
Well, sure.
I think that would definitely slow the program down.
And Andy McCarthy, during the debate the other day, was talking about how the Obama agreement actually had either some kind of loophole or whatever that allowed for these very missiles that were raining on Israel the other day. That was an Obama thing. So, and I don't know, are those the kinds of missiles that you could put a nuclear warhead on? I'm no nuclear bomb expert.
You can put a nuclear bomb, strap a nuclear bomb onto a shoe shine, boy.
There you go.
You don't really need them. I mean, it's just like a day's walk for a camel from Iran to Israel.
All right. So yeah, so I just so I was slowed down a little bit by that, but it did, because I always thought the deal wasn't very good on any score.
No, it's these elitists in Washington and United Nations and in Europe that think that their intelligence is so pacifying that they can actually talk their way, that other people will recognize their higher plane of reality, and they'll be able to rationalize with the.
Yeah, I mean, it just seemed like there was one big side, or even a couple of big sides of the Rubik's Cube that you hadn't really figured out here, and that they were going to still wind up with a nuclear weapon. So here's, I saw a tweet by Jim Pethokoukis this morning, and it showed the movement of in ports, various ports across the world, of goods, and how many moves that they have per hour, this chart, and longshoremen, how effective and efficient they are. And it's like the United States cities were like dead last in the world, and Shanghai, China, was moving so many more goods through ports per hour than our cities were. So the chutzpah of this thug who runs the Longshoremen's Union with his yacht and his $900,000 a year salary, and the demand for a 50% raise and 6 weeks off, all this, when we could get a machine to replace them. And I thought that should have been a question during the debate, because both of these guys, especially during the domestic portion, they're not going to go against the unions. They would go.
Yeah, neither of them. Neither of them. It's I saw that interview with the guy. It was like he was almost saying, "Hey, pretty nice Christmas you got here. Shame if something would happen to it."
Yeah, well, he was acquitted on RICO charges after the main witness against him, mobster Lawrence Ricci, was found decomposing in a car trunk in New Jersey. So, yeah, I just
there's your answer right there. Why the stuff is moving so slowly through our port. I mean, what kind of mobster doesn't know how to get a body out of a trunk quickly?
There you go. There you go. So, I was thinking that, if we can't invoke the Taft-Hartley Act and, that maybe we just do the Reagan-Patco thing, fire all these longshoremen, and we could put them in a tent in Gompers Park in Chicago, where there are migrants right now, and, so they get back on their feet and get, decent work. Oh, my God. But I would have loved that to be a question during the debate, because they would have just shrugged their shoulders. Even J.D. Vance, as glib and as smooth as he is, he went, well, we got to take away jobs from China, like tariffs work and all that, blah, blah, blah. Bruce Wolf, Tim Slagle on the Weekly Wrap. Bruce Wolf, Tim Slagle on the Weekly Wrap. So, did you see this? This guy named Steve Guest tweeted that Fran Lebowitz. Do you remember Fran Lebowitz?
Yeah.
Okay. So she was on Bill Maher, and she said Biden, and I didn't watch the clip, but she said Biden should dissolve the Supreme Court. And of course, people were reacting on Twitter. Everybody, the same thing. Oh, I thought she died in a kiln fire. The reference to Animal House, and that wasn't Fran Lebowitz. It was Fawn Lebowitz, and it wasn't Annie Leibovitz. Other people were saying that, like, they didn't realize how bad Howard Stern had aged. I mean, there were some good.
Yeah, she does kind of look like she survived a kiln explosion,
yeah, exactly.
doesn't she?
Now, here's the thing. I remember this bit. Did you think she was funny? Do you remember her at all, or she was a comedian?
I think I read a book by her, and it was somewhat amusing.
Okay. And yeah, I thought she really was dead by now. I hadn't heard of her in years. But you can correct me if I'm wrong. I've got to couch this very carefully. I swear I thought she was the one, did a bit. I mean, it was so transgressive. She said that the tragedy of AIDS was that it took all the great gay guys. I mean, oh, the cruelty of that. I mean, it's just like, if you were attractive, then you were in bathhouses, and you were, and it was just, that was the tragedy. The creme de la creme, the people that she could,
the ones that didn't have to hide on the other side of the glory hole.
Gee whiz. So yeah, I just thought that was amazing. So where are we? Are we in the D block right now? Yeah, we're almost done with this show.
Happy birthday, Jimmy Carter.
Jimmy Carter, 100 years old. And I, of course, hoped that anti-Semitic bastard was told, because his 100th birthday came on the day that Israel was attacking, and I hope kind of raised his blood pressure. But he was, I love. You'll get liberals or some people to admit, well, yeah, he wasn't a great president, but everything that he did. By the way, this is Bruce's Death Watch special segment, but in memoriam. Well, no, prospective memoriam, but
yeah, he said he wants to live long enough to vote for Kamala, which I don't think that really has anything to do with it, does it? I'm pretty sure he's going to vote for her no matter what.
Sure, exactly. He's still a lying sack, right to the bitter end. And then happy
and
birthday.
Beyond.
That reminds me. What was the Beyond thing I have here? This is gonna bother me. There was a marriage thing. Oh my! I almost want to stop the tape right here. because I just can't find this.
That's okay. We can cut it out.
All right. Yeah. Let me. Oh, this is gonna. Oh, yeah, Chris. I'm sorry about this. Let me find it. Yeah. So, Pete Rose died. Speaking well, that's not Death Watch. That's Death. I happen to know that Shoeless Joe Jackson has asked Pete Rose any word from the commissioner yet. Okay. Here's the thing. He didn't get.
Is the war over, Mr. Benny?
he didn't get. He only got a lifetime ban, not an eternal ban. And it's kind of like Larry David and Cheryl on Curb Your Enthusiasm when they decided to renew their wedding vows, and they actually had a fight about whether upon death they would part. She wanted to be with him through eternity, and he wanted out after death. And yeah, I'm thinking that Pete Rose can go in now. Now we're seeing an AP story here that Chris is putting up. Pete Rose still not going into Hall of Fame. His MLB ban was permanent, not lifetime. Now, here's the thing. I thought the ban was from, the ban was from Major League Baseball. The Hall of Fame is separate from Major League Baseball. How much does this interest you, Tim? Like none, not at all.
No, I'm curious. I'm curious how you're going to parse this.
Okay, because I have a feeling this is as interesting to you as how many California Angels can dance on the head of a pin. But all right, so here's the thing: if Major League Baseball bans him permanently or not lifetime, forget if it's permanently. The Major League Baseball does not control the Hall of Fame. Hall of Fame is whoever, and the baseball writers vote. They then adopted something ex post facto, by the way, because it was after Pete Rose had been banned by baseball. So I don't even know if that's kosher. But they are free to do what they want. And I would say now here's what Chris is saying. Rose agreed to permanent ineligibility for Major League Baseball following a probe of his vetting. Yes, I know that. That's the ban by Major League Baseball, but not from the Hall of Fame. So he
read the second part of that, Bruce.
What's I didn't see a second part. What's the second part?
You seeing this?
No, I'm not seeing
280 characters is Bruce's limit.
Yeah, right. Anyone on the permanently ineligible list can't be considered for election in the Hall of Fame under a rule by the Hall, probably, I'm going to infer, which is ex post facto. It's after Rose, had committed these offenses. I don't think it would. I'd fight it. And they should change it. They should just change it. He should just get in. Although I got to tell you something about Pete Rose. This whole thing that he had when he had the 4,200, was it 291 hits or 191? I can't remember. I remember at the time. I mean, I was a pretty big baseball fan at the time. I know about DiMaggio's 56 game hitting streak and Ruth and Aaron and all these records, even Maury Wills and Lou Brock with steals and Ricky Henderson, whatever. I don't think anybody at the time thought had ever even heard of Ty Cobb's base hit record. You know who made everybody think about Ty Cobb's base hit record and that Pete Rose was about to break it? Pete Rose did it. Nobody else. He was a hype machine. And, it's an accomplishment. But, and even so, I still think he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. Put him in there. I mean, it's not like he used steroids or whatever. And there's even an argument to let those guys in. But I can only make one argument at a time. Do you care whether he's in the Hall of Fame?
Not really.
No, of course
I'm
not.
I'm never going to visit. I mean, what's is it just an honor? That's
it's a big deal, but I don't know how much it means to anybody who's already died. I'm not really sure how much I got a feeling everything I know about the hereafter, I only have rudimentary knowledge about it. But everything I know about the hereafter is they don't care. Okay. They don't really. They're beyond it. I know it's hard to believe that Charlie Hustle isn't still hustling, but he isn't.
No, even people that have sworn, like Houdini, that have sworn if there's a way back that he'll come back. He gets on the other side and said, "What was I thinking?"
Totally. I mean,
I ain't going back.
It's just a totally different existence. It's not even an existence. So yeah, when you're part of eternity, it's a whole different ball game, I want to tell you. And I don't think, but I think we the living, it would be good for us to sanctify, what Pete Rose did. Although there was one sports guy, the progressive, radical, who shall remain nameless, Bernstein, who apparently was talking about, I had totally forgotten about this, that Pete Rose apparently committed statutory rape about 60 years ago or something like that. And he even admitted, he said, and this was in Ohio where the age of consent was 16. He thought she was 16. But they found out about it years later.
What's she doing driving a car at 15? How was I to know?
It's Ohio, and look, you can't excuse that. Can't excuse it. But he was a lot of fun, and he was an absolute riot in the post-game shows on Major League Baseball playoffs on Fox. I mean, he was insightful. He was very funny. I don't know if you've ever watched Charles Barkley do it on the NBA. He was better than Barkley. And Barkley's great. But so...
I'm sure he was an expert on the stats.
Well, he was expert on the stats. He was an expert on technique. I remember him when he'd come to Wrigley Field. Every time he came up to bat, you knew if the Cubs had a lead, it was gone. I mean, it was a terrific ball player. But
no. You mentioned Shoeless Joe. He was never brought in? He was,
he's been banned for he's been banned for eternity too.
Right. So, but they never let him into the Hall of Fame.
Never let him into the Hall of Fame. Did you ever see Field of Dreams?
Yeah. Yeah, I did. Okay. I actually did.
Yeah. And did you cry at all at the end?
I never cry.
You never cry?
Well, it's okay to admit that you cried at Field of Dreams and Brian's Song, and there's like 4 or 5 films that guys are allowed to cry at.
But not Love Story. You're not allowed to cry during Love Story.
No Love Story, no Notebook.
No. Notebook. Let the wife cry during Notebook. But don't Field of Dreams. Saw it in the movie theater, and I'm choking back. The tears. That moment when the cars are lining up with their lights on, it's like it's like a not a funeral procession, but a resurrection procession, because everybody's going very silently at night to meet their dad coming out of the corn stalks.
Have a catch.
Even though I Have a Catch sounded a little bit swishy. You played catch. You didn't have a catch. And then, of course, I juxtapose that, just so I can stop crying, with the Dewey Cox story, Walk Hard, where he's playing the country star who's fathered so many children out of wedlock, and they show a montage of him finally playing catch with all these kids that he's never seen before. Because we always want to end with a laugh. Bruce Wolf, Tim Slagle on the Weekly Wrap.
And that's the Weekly Wrap on radio and television. Follow Bruce at Bruce Wolf Shy on Twitter and Tim at timslagle.com. The Weekly Wrap with Bruce Wolf, a CP Pods production.